All right, let's talk about Korean. The language that powers all that amazing K-pop and those K-dramas we can't stop binging. Today, we're going to crack the code on the one thing that trips up almost every beginner, how the sentences are actually built. Let's dive right in. You've been there, right? You're watching a show, you might even pick out a word or two, but the way they're all put together just feels scrambled, like completely inside out compared to English. It's a super common feeling, but I promise you, there's a really simple logic to it all. See, the secret isn't about trying to memorize a bunch of random, frustrating rules. It's about realizing that Korean is just built from a different blueprint. And once you see that blueprint, I'm telling you, everything else just starts to click into place. Okay, so in English, we keep it pretty simple with a subject, verb, object structure. SVO. Eric eats an apple. But Korean? It flips things around to subject, object, verb. SOV. So that same sentence becomes literally Eric an apple eats. The action, that verb, always gets saved for the grand finale at the very end. And that, right there, is the golden rule. Seriously, if you only remember one thing from all of this, make it this. The verb, the action part of the sentence, always comes last. There are no exceptions. This is the absolute bedrock of Korean grammar. So you're probably wondering, okay, if the verb is always at the end, how on earth do you know who's doing what? Well, Korean has this incredibly clever little system for that. I like to call it grammar's superglue. These little things are called particles, or josa. Think of them like tiny little name tags that you stick right onto the end of a word. Their entire job is to tell you what that word is doing. Is it the subject? The object? The particle spells it all out for you, crystal clear. And the system for using them is just so elegant. To mark the subject, you'll use E if the word ends in a consonant, and ga if it ends in a vowel. For the object, it's ul after a consonant and ul after a vowel. It's just a simple little rule that makes the whole language flow so much more smoothly. Now, this is where the magic really happens. Because these particles are doing all the hard work of labeling each word's job, the actual word order can get pretty flexible. So the standard way is subject, object, verb. But look at this. You can literally flip the subject and the object around, and the meaning doesn't change a bit. An apple, Eric eats. It still means Eric eats an apple, it just puts a little more focus on the apple. The particles hold the meaning together like glue. The only unbreakable rule, you guessed it, the verb still has to be last. And this brings us to our next huge idea. In Korean, the verb isn't just hanging out at the end of the sentence. It's the boss. It rules the entire sentence. By changing its own form to show tense, politeness, and even the mood of the conversation. And changing it, or conjugating it, is a really simple three-step process. First, you start with its dictionary form, like 먹다, which means to eat. Second, you just chop off that final da to get the pure verb stem, which is 먹. And third, you just snap on the ending you need. It's basically like building with Legos. Now, one of the most important jobs of those verb endings is to show politeness. And this is where grammar really connects with culture, reflecting just how important respect is in Korean society. When you're starting out, there are really only two main levels you need to know. First is the formal polite. You'll hear this on the news or in a business presentation. But the one you're going to hear and use 99% of the time is the informal polite. It's respectful, but still friendly and warm, absolutely perfect for daily conversations. Okay, theory time is over. We have all the pieces of the puzzle. We know the SOV structure, we've got our particles superglue, and we get how verb endings work. Let's build our very first sentence from scratch. Step 1. We lay down the foundation. Our subject. We've got Eric. Since Eric ends in a consonant, we attach the subject particle E. Easy enough. Next up, what's he doing something to? An apple, which is sagwa. Sagwa ends in a vowel, so we snap on the object particle rule. So far we have Eriki가, 사과를, Eric, an apple. Now it's time for the boss. The verb to eat is 먹다. Remember the rule? We just drop the da to get our stem, 먹, and we place it right at the very end. And for the final touch, we add that common, super useful, informal, polite ending, 에요. And there it is, Eriki 사과로 먹어요. A perfect, totally natural Korean sentence. You did it! So let's just do a super quick recap. First, a sentence structure is subject, object, verb. Second, particles are the superglue that tells you a noun's job, which means word order can be flexible. And third, the verb is always the boss at the end, and its ending tells you all about the politeness of the situation. You now have the fundamental blueprint for building pretty much any basic Korean sentence. That structure that felt so backwards before, it's actually got a clear and consistent logic to it. So now that you know the secret, the only question left is, what are you going to try to say first?